What happens when one of the world's most critical shipping lanes becomes a danger zone? Oil markets start shaking, and Europe sends its most powerful warship toward the crisis. That is exactly what is unfolding right now in the Middle East. France has confirmed that its nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the Charles de Gaulle, is moving toward the Red Sea as Paris and London prepare a possible maritime security mission near the Strait of Hormuz. And if this sounds serious, it is. Because this is not just about one warship moving into position. This is about Europe stepping directly into one of the most dangerous geopolitical flashpoints in the world. Welcome back to the channel, where we break down global events in a simple, powerful, and easy-to-follow way. Today's story is about power, strategy, shipping, oil, and the growing risk that the Iran crisis may no longer be a regional problem, but a global one. Why Hormuz matters. To understand why this story matters, you need to understand the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway is one of the most important energy corridors on the planet. A huge share of global oil passes through it, which means any disruption there can send shockwaves through energy prices, trade routes, insurance markets, and even global inflation. When commercial ships begin to avoid the area, the effects are not limited to the Middle East. They can reach Europe, Asia, and the United States within days. That is why the latest warning signs have triggered such a dramatic response. According to the report, attacks and threats against commercial vessels have pushed maritime traffic in Hormuz toward collapse, while war risk insurance premiums are rising across the Gulf. In plain language, the world's shipping companies are getting nervous, and when shipping companies panic, governments usually start moving fast. France makes its move. Now let's talk about the major headline. French President Emmanuel Macron has confirmed that France's nuclear-powered aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle is moving toward the Red Sea. That is not a routine move. It is a signal. It tells the world that France is preparing for a possible role in securing maritime traffic in a region where tensions are rising fast. And France is not moving alone. The report says Paris and London are preparing a possible multinational maritime security mission near the Strait of Hormuz. The mission is being described as defensive and, importantly, separate from US-led operations already underway. That matters because it suggests Europe wants to show it can act independently when global trade routes are under threat. This is more than military posture. It is political messaging. Europe is trying to say, we're not going to sit on the sidelines while the Gulf becomes more unstable. Europe steps in. For years, the Strait of Hormuz has been a place where global powers watched closely, but often let the United States take the lead. This time, Europe appears more willing to step forward. Why now? Because the shipping crisis is getting worse. The report says the France-UK mission is designed to restore confidence among ship owners and insurers after attacks and threats send traffic levels in the strait toward collapse. That is crucial. In international crises, it is not enough to have ships in the water. You also need markets to believe the route is safe. If insurers stop covering vessels or demand massive premiums, shipping can freeze even without a single major battle. So the arrival of the Charles de Gaulle is not just about firepower. It is about reassurance. It is meant to project control, stability, and deterrence at the same time. The oil shock risk. Now let's get to the part that could affect everyone watching this video. Oil. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a regional choke point. It is one of the biggest pressure points in the global energy system. If traffic there slows, if ships avoid the zone, or if attacks escalate, then oil transport becomes more expensive and less predictable. And when transport costs go up, prices usually follow. That means gasoline prices, shipping costs, manufacturing costs, and even food prices can all feel the impact. The report specifically warns about fears of a major oil supply shock, which is why so many governments are watching this crisis with alarm. This is how a regional standoff becomes a global economic story. One missile launch, one naval incident, one blocked route, and suddenly the price of energy begins moving everywhere. The strategic message. There's also a deeper strategic message here. Macron said the mission should help restore freedom of navigation, and that the strait must be reopened without delay and without conditions. That language is important because it frames the issue as one of international law and trade freedom, not just military containment. At the same time, Macron linked stability in Hormuz to wider diplomacy with Iran, including future talks on sanctions, missiles, and Tehran's nuclear program. So this is not only about protecting ships, it is also about creating leverage for political negotiations. In other words, the warship is doing two jobs at once. It is a shield for shipping and a message to Tehran. What could happen next? So what happens from here? There are a few possible paths. First, the presence of European naval forces could reduce the risk of direct attacks on shipping and stabilize the corridor enough to ease market fear. That would be the best-case scenario. Second, the mission could become a new source of tension if Iran or other regional actors see it as a provocation rather than a protective move. In that case, the zone could become even more militarized. Third, even without major clashes, the threat alone may keep insurance rates high and shipping routes unstable, which means the economic pain could continue even if there is no full-scale escalation. That is the real danger in this crisis. Sometimes the damage is not caused by war itself, but by the fear of war. Why this is bigger than France? France's move is important, but the bigger story is what it says about the current world order. Europe is trying to prove it can protect critical sea lanes and defend its own commercial interests. That is a sign of a changing global security environment. It also shows that the Iran crisis is no longer being treated as a problem for the Middle East alone. It is now being viewed as a direct threat to world trade, energy stability, and international security. And once that happens, the stakes rise fast. Because whenever the world's major powers begin positioning warships near a choke point like Hormuz, markets pay attention, governments pay attention, and ordinary people eventually pay the price at the pump, in stores, and in shipping costs. What could happen next? So what happens from here? There are a few possible paths. First, the presence of European naval forces could reduce the risk of direct attacks on shipping and stabilize the corridor enough to ease market fear. That would be the best-case scenario. Second, the mission could become a new source of tension if Iran or other regional actors see it as a provocation rather than a protective move. In that case, the zone could become even more militarized. Third, even without major clashes, the threat alone may keep insurance rates high and shipping routes unstable,